Hi, my name is Mark Walker. I'm the editorial director of the FinTech Times, and we're here in Riyadh at 24Fintech. I'm going to start off by asking my guest to introduce herself to you, the audience.
I'm Ghela Boskovich. I am the head of the Financial Data and Technology Association for Europe and the UK, and a general web browser.
It feels strange asking you to introduce yourself because I've known you for so many years and you're so entwined into the FinTech ecosystems globally. But I had to do it anyway because there may be some people that have not yet had the
No,
pleasure.
but I'm a bad penny that just keeps on showing up. Let's just be honest. Her again? Oh, goodness.
So, obviously, we're here in Riyadh and 24Fintech. A very interesting, thriving FinTech ecosystem. First of all, what's your take on FinTech in this region?
It's got government support as an absolute economic imperative. And I find that extraordinary, the level of support. There are certain jurisdictions that this is a thing. You want to make it an industry. The vision for 2030, where leveraging financial technology is an essential component to getting Saudi fully modernized and ready for the next several centuries, it's phenomenal. I think that's one of the most interesting things, is that right now we're at a conference that is fundamentally hosted and prepared and sponsored by the regulators and the government. They want this. They're encouraging the conversations. They want to be aware and ready of what's coming from a technological trend perspective, but also the practical application of how it can better the outcomes for their own consumers in the markets that they serve, as well as facilitate technological advancement for other regions that can look to this as a starting point. It's phenomenal, the scale of this, and I find that really encouraging.
It really is, isn't it? When you think about it globally, there's probably only two other places in the world that have the similar sort of approach, one of them being Singapore, with Singapore FinTech Festival, which has Maz, the regulator, as the principal organizer of it, and then potentially the brother or the sister, whichever way you look at it, in the UAE of Dubai, Financial Services, and Abu Dhabi. Does that, to you, mean that you think that some of the more westernized areas, the UK, Europe, and the US, are missing out on a trick, or have they just gone through their own natural point to get to where they are?
Different markets have different needs and different appetites, and a lot of it is VC funding, right, where the money is, but also I think where it's easy to set up business. And in some cases, it's not easy for certain markets. It's a lot more complicated to establish a business and certainly to be regulated. And for the space that I'm in, which is open banking, all of those technology practitioners have to be licensed, accredited, and they're supervised and regulated. And you add the complexities of starting a business in a particular geography. So the barrier to entry of just establishing an LLC versus where the money sits versus where the regulators are involved in your day-to-day activities. It's a very different proposition. And every technology founder and entrepreneur has a different appetite for that. But there are certain jurisdictions which it's a little bit easier to get started. So I don't necessarily think it's better or more advanced or someone's missing a trick. It's you get the market that you set up the market to be. And whether or not you want to facilitate technology company growth and digital transformation adoption from a public policy perspective and a private industry driver is a very different question. And I don't have a good answer other than it's kind of relative.
Yeah. Okay. I guess the interesting thing that you sort of touched on there is obviously how, how advanced people can be. One of the things you could argue that, the kingdom has seen how fintech started in the UK and it's trying to do it slightly differently and maybe improve on some of those things. In the same way, when we look at open banking, for example, we can see a similar trend there as well, which obviously the UK was one of the first people to term open banking a thing and try and get it on board. But obviously here in the kingdom, they've taken that to a whole new level, really, haven't they? What are your thoughts on how they're looking to implement and run open banking compared to the UK?
One of the challenges of being a first adopter is you have to learn the lessons the hard way. And the UK has done an exemplary job in doing incremental steps, doing a slow build that allows us to learn as we go. And we've fought the fight. It's been hard, battle scars, etc. But we've delivered something that actually has extraordinary adoption. given where open banking is. And I think the kingdom has been savvy in taking a template and tweaking it a bit to allow for their particular market needs, but adopting something that they know actually works and are willing to learn the lessons that come out of the UK, but also understanding they have to do more faster, but they also have the template to do more faster because someone's already done it. So it's nice because it's also a familiar model. I mean, it's the one that I work in every single day. I swim in the stuff. I mean, I could drown in it if I chose to. And frankly, I kind of do. I love it. But they have an example to look to. And I think it also speaks to their understanding that they have a window of opportunity to do it and to do it well. But they can't just look at banking. They have to look at finance. And they're in a prime position to also start understanding how they can leverage other sector data and looking at more of a smart data, open data approach. But they will be able to leapfrog a lot of where we are, because it's taken a long time for us to get open banking to work. But now we're waiting for an ability or the permission really to formalize open finance in the UK. We're waiting for some legislative permissions to do so. And here they can quickly expedite that. That's their comparative advantage. And that just means it's easier to implement and deliver. So well done to them, but also pay very close attention to some of the undercurrents that don't necessarily get advertised from the UK space. There's a lot of stuff that actually could be useful in encouraging the alignment between industry and fintech and making sustainable, revenue positive and profitable models, and understanding how they can leverage their position to orchestrate that for the region. Granted, every single country has, and I shouldn't say every single country, but there are other countries in the GCC that have their formal regulatory frameworks, but have a different flavor. Some are hybrid, some are more market-driven. But if you're going from a regulatory-driven approach, the kingdom is definitely ingesting the lessons, and I suspect that they'll have an advantage because of that.
Yeah, as you say, the first mover advantage is good in some areas, but also a
challenge.
Bit of a challenge in others.
Yeah.
In that sort of area.
But everything's a double-edged sword, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. All positive and negative. And a lot of what I've been hearing from companies within the region that are looking to utilize open banking is that the focus is much more on the use case, as you say, not just for financial products, but across the whole thing. And so that seems to be quite a positive thing for open banking here in the kingdom, because they're thinking about what they can do with it rather than how they get it done.
And therein lies the difference. But you have to have the doing, as in building the technical infrastructure, having standards, making sure that you can actually exchange the data safely, securely, etc. But if you're looking at creating a sustainable market, it is going to be use case driven precisely because it will have a commercial angle attached to it. And you find alignment between the provider, the institution, and the third party provider, the fintech, that allows it to be economically sustainable, where both can actually find advantage in creating an offering. But having specific use cases makes it much more tangible. You can also start measuring the change and the impact a little bit easier than when you're just focusing on the build.
Yeah, fantastic. And then I know you're a busy person, so I won't keep you for too long. I only get a certain amount of time with you, which I'm very thankful for. Obviously, other than your amazing panels that you've been speaking on, what else have you seen over the event so far that you've been really interested in?
There was a session on BNPL yesterday, which I thought was fascinating because it's an interesting concept. It's framed as a payment product. It actually is a credit product. A lot of markets are trying to figure out whether they intervene to regulate. That was interesting. I was really pleased to hear about the open banking announcement and the main stage where they're showcasing what that is, in part because that's my primary interest. But I'm looking forward to a little bit more of the tokenization and securities conversations that are coming up later today. And it just satisfies my curiosity. That's a nice thing, is there's something to tickle anybody's fancy. And it's a phenomenal conference in terms of scale and scope. But yeah, I'm a little distracted by spot parts, and most of it, let's be honest, is open banking related.
Yeah, obviously. Thank you so much for joining me on the FinTech Times.
Thank you, Mark. Good to see you again, as always.